firstly like to welcome everyone to this event. It's so terrific you've turned up. I'm really, really pleased to see the sort of engagement from our local community. We're going to talk about what the project is all about very briefly. I'll introduce that. Then we've got some topic-based talks, short talks from people who are way more expert than ourselves, Jay and Daniel, who we'll introduce formally a little later. We're talking about a set of ideas about reducing costs on your energy bills, decarbonising your home through using modern electric appliances powered by renewable energies. And these ideas fundamentally are being promoted by a guy called Saul Griffith, author of The Big Switch, energy guru, advisor to the Biden administration on their energy policy, and one of the architects of the Inflation Reduction Act in America, which is the piece of legislation which is transforming their economy, zero emissions economy. So Saul's the guy. I'm going to hand over for 1 minute for you to hear from Saul himself. There's a little video that Valerie put together. It kind of sums up the key principles of the whole Electrification approach. And at the end of that, I'll just expand a little bit on what that means for us today.
More than 60% of the fuels that we use to generate our electricity get wasted as heat. If we electrify everything, we eliminate a huge amount of the waste, and we use less than half of the energy we currently do.
42% of the emissions that occur in our domestic economy happen from that small set of machines that are in every Australian household.
We need to electrify nearly everything. To do that, you've got to change the infrastructure of your life. That means electrifying your car, it means electrifying your house, it means powering it with sunshine and wind and renewables.
If we had to hit a 1.5 degree target, every single hot water heater that needs to be replaced at its next failure needs to be electric and powered by renewables, every single space heater, every single vehicle. So by doing that, you can now model out that we're going to be saving the Australian household $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a year.
There's only wins here. Lower energy bills, improved health. Let's do it.
That's the big picture. We're talking here some very basic ideas. Electrify just about everything. Power it with renewables. Reduce your energy waste. Cut our energy bills and reduce our carbon emissions. Now obviously this is at a societal level, it's at an economy-wide level, but what does that mean for us as individuals, as householders? As Saul said, 42% of emissions in our economy come from domestic energy use. That's you and I. What can we do? To electrify everything, make smart purchasing decisions. When you buy something new, it's worn out, get a modern electric version of it. Try and avoid gas, try and avoid wood burners. Get off the fossil fuels. So power it with renewables. If you've got the chance, put solar PV on your roof and use that free energy off your roof to power your home. Again, reducing energy waste is all about having modern, efficient appliances, and heat pumps are a classic example of that. We're going to hear more about that later today. The heat pump is 6 times more efficient than a standard electric element hot water system. And that hot water system is the thing that uses just about the most power in your home. So massive savings to be made just by replacing that. And as Daniel's going to explain later, there are some incredibly good deals for getting into that, and we're having a silent auction of a heat pump a little later, which Vera will talk about. So just by doing these simple things, making these decisions, that when you get a new car, maybe think about an EV. When you replace your hot water system, think about an electric heat pump. All of these things will mean that your house can effectively be net zero. And all you're doing is just changing the things you buy. You're not doing anything special. This is what a modern electric home would look like. Solar on the roof, EV in the garage, potentially plugged into your house to take energy from it and put energy back into it. Reverse cycle air conditioning, very efficient. Modern hot water heat pumps, and a home battery. We're going to talk about all of these things today. So, and very briefly, how are we going as a community? How is Bundeena sitting in getting to this ideal world? You may be aware that as part of this project, we've launched a community survey, and I think about 70 or 80 people have responded to that so far. I'm just going to give you a little taste of the feedback we're getting. So how many people in Bundeena have solar panels? 55.6% so far. on this. Now that's way higher than the national average, something to be proud of. We've got another 44% to go. Do you have a home battery? Home batteries are expensive. It's not for everybody. They are getting cheaper, and there may be other alternatives. But at the moment, almost 10% of our respondents have a home battery already. Now here's some room for improvement. 77% of our residents have a petrol car. Very expensive, very polluting. EVs are going to get cheaper and cheaper, hopefully. There'll be a way to transition to that. Think about that the next time you buy a car. Hot water systems. The worst hot water system you can have in terms of energy efficiency is an electric element hot water system. About half of our homes currently have those. And likewise with cooking. The gold standard really are electric induction. We have quite an uptake of that, about a third in our community already. But still plenty of standard old electric plates and gas. And hopefully we can improve there. And heating. Plug-in electric heaters, probably the worst thing you can do, apart from burning wood and gas. We've still got plenty of our homes heated in that way. You can see that this guides the planning for this project going forward. What are we going to address? What are the things we can change in our community as individuals and collectively? Gives us a bit of focus. It also means that at the end of this project, whenever that will be, a year or two, after we've done all of the information sessions and bulk buys and all of the things that we can possibly do to assist you, we'd like to know what effect all that has. You know, what's changed? Did we make a difference? How far have we come? Because while we're a local community group, in a local community, what we're doing here is of interest nationwide. There are quite a few people here. Leanne Farmer, who's not a Bundeena resident, our local councillor, and many, many people in the outside world taking a keen interest in what's happening. It's projects like this, it's communities like ours that are driving change by individuals making good choices. And it changes the world. So think big. You know, this stuff is really, really cutting edge. So why aren't we doing all of the things yet as well as we might? These were the key reasons that came out of the survey when we asked people, and these are things we can do something about. Number one, people don't know enough about some of these things. Obviously, the role of this project is to help you come to grips with that by having people like Daniel and Jay give you the goss on EVs, home batteries, all of that sort of stuff. We're going to have a series of information sessions that Vera will outline for you over the course of the next year. Too expensive. Now, we can't change that too much, but there are things like the bulk buys that we're planning. We hope to offer you some economies of purchasing power so that you can get into things like heat pumps, batteries. And finally, a lot of people haven't changed their appliances because they haven't had the need, or their cars haven't yet had the need to replace them. But this is the nature of change. Sooner or later, the next week or month, one of your homes will need a new whatever. This is the time to make a choice for the future. So I'm going to hand over to Vera.
Welcome everybody. I'm going to do our Electrify Bundeena roadmap for you, but I do want to thank the Sutherland Shire Environment Centre, which I don't think we've thanked yet, because without them we would not be here. So 12 months ago we tried to apply for a grant, we didn't get it, and then the lovely Banyer ladies 2 months ago said, look, damn it, we'll just loan you $2,000 and you can pay us back. And that's when we set the launch date, so thank you, Banyer Working Group. Then 2 weeks later, the Sutherland Shire Environment Centre gave us a LEAF grant, which is like seedling funding. So we're insured now by the Sutherland Shire Environment Centre, and we got $2,000 from them. And that's how we got all our merchandise and our branding all done. So that's why we're here, but we need to basically fundraise because we've just spent all of that money. Then we've got this silent auction which is now live, and at the back there you can see a beautiful patchwork quilt by Patty Haskett, who's running away so that I can't thank her. But basically a silent auction is like eBay online. You'll see the link on our website, and you can bid, and you can put in a highest bid, but it will only bid to the increments that it's up to. That's our other fundraiser, basically, because like to do a letterbox drop, we need $500, so we need money. Then Jim, our artist, I want to tell you the story of our logo. He was walking on the beach, I think, and he saw this leaf, and we had asked him to design a logo for us, and he said, oh, this leaf looks like a light bulb. And then he goes, yeah, that's the logo. And then you can see what it has become, and if you look really, really carefully, down the bottom of the light bulb, he's got the little green sort of stem of the leaf. So this artwork is also donated by Jim for auction on the silent auction. It's priceless. So please bid on it. Then we've got a heat pump bulb buy coming because we got donated a $3,900 heat pump. So I was literally levitating. We've got to thank Reclaim Australia. We actually have a locked-in bulb buy for heat pumps, and heat pumps will save you the most of your bill at home. So I'm really, really pleased that we're starting with the most bang for your buck item as our bulb buys. That is being launched on the 17th of October up at the RSL at night. But if you want to bid on our heat pump, that auction is live, and you will probably get an STC credit of $1,515. So if you bid up to that, you know you're going to get a heat pump for free, because the government gives you credit. So I strongly advise you to have a look at that. Then we've locked in a date for open houses. Basically, how does it work with a heat pump? How does it work with solar rooftop? How does it work with a solar battery? We've got a section of Eric Street where we've got everything covered. We also have a passive house by appointment only, where you can actually come and talk to owners of this stuff that will show you how it all operates. That's on the 12th of November, it's a Sunday. So this is our roadmap. I basically think we have 980 houses in Bundeena. We need statistics. So I really, really urge everyone to go online and do our survey, because we want to see how we can help people change. So at the moment we've got 61 houses that have responded. So can you please do our survey so we get good statistics? From the survey, which is running now, we've got the heat pump bulb buy. A heat pump uses, you can save, at my place, I'm saving 90% of my energy bill with the hot water changeover, so it's really good to have one. Early next year, we've got a solar bulb buy pretty much lined up. I want to acknowledge our trade people here. PowerGen, Jean is here. We've got a local plumber, and we've also got AG Solar that has, I think, got an amazing deal that we will announce shortly. And then we've got an EV day coming up and electrifying your home. And then if we get funding, we're going to train up these home energy consultants that will come to your house, go through a survey and help you work out what will be the best step for me, for my house. I can spend $2,000 to $4,000, or I can spend $10,000, or I can spend $800, where we can just help you work out what is your next step. And that is a call for volunteers. We're desperate for volunteers, of course. Anything, letterbox drops, minutes, trade negotiations, our website, social media, photography. We need you. We have a volunteer sign-up form on our website. Have a go and fill it out. Now, I'm going to hand over to Daniel, who is from the Sunny Shire, which is also a campaign of Sutherland Shire Environment Centre, and you're going to talk to us about burning stuff.
Yep. Okay, so I'm an electrical engineer, I've got 22 years experience, so electrification is my thing, not electrocution. So just quickly, health aspects of burning things. Okay, so anytime we burn a fossil fuel, wood, petrol, gas, basically we end up with a whole bunch of things that were contained in it. Big ones are particulate matters, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxides. Carbon dioxide is more an environmental issue. Big one is also moisture. Inside your house, this basically ends up in mold. Burning gas, much the same, 1 or 2 things less. And then burning wood. So burning wood brings a couple of extra things: formaldehyde, benzene, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. I have no idea what they are or what they do. All this comes from the New South Wales government website, so you can look it up in your own time. But I'm just going to quickly talk about the first 3 because they are quite pertinent. So inside your house, short-term and long-term consequences. I'll let you go through the short-term in your own time. The big ones are long-term. Development of cardiovascular and respiratory diseases. That's actually development of, not just triggering. Reduced lung function, increased rate of disease progression, so if you are sick, you will get worse. And then reduction in life expectancy overall. Nitrous oxide, this one's fun. Long-term incontinence. Weakened immune system, memory loss, anemia, numbness. Reproductive system disruption, I think most of us are a bit older than that, but it's in there. Depression, psychosis, and that is definitely a typo. Psychological independence. Carbon monoxide, probably less of an issue, but permanent brain injury and death, that requires a very large dose. Sulfur dioxide, this one's not one of the big 3, but if you are asthmatic, you will find this very pertinent. It usually comes from cars, more so than anything else, but it does trigger asthmatic attacks. Okay, now on to the real content. Heat pump hot water units. So I'm going to talk about why you want to get one, what they do, how they work, differences in vendor models and things to watch out for. Okay, so straight off the bat, easy one. They use 1/3 down to 1/6 of the actual energy that an electric element hot water uses. If you've got solar hot water on your roof, you will find that often in winter you are boosting from either gas or from electricity over winter, and even early spring and late autumn when the temperature is cold and the sun's not giving you enough to actually heat your water. It eliminates all fossil fuels apart from anything that's required. If you are running from your solar PV, there's no fossil fuels involved. A few things are solar diverters. They are often proposed as a solution to reduce your costs. They don't reduce your energy. So when you combine them with a solar PV system on your roof, in winter your solar production is half, but your actual energy consumption almost doubles for your hot water system. So you'll find that you actually don't have enough solar to heat your tank in a day, and then you're back onto the grid and you don't get the cost savings that you think you are. It works in a battery that stores solar energy in the hot water, so it's quite minimal. Versus the battery, they are approximately half to 1/3 of the cost to install, and they provide about 2/3 of the benefits. And it is constant, so you lose a little bit of heat every day in a normal hot water system. It stores hot water, and you are actually saving that energy every day. Big one is if you've got an instantaneous hot water system, they are proposed as efficient, and they are, versus a storage hot water system, but not in terms of cost, because often you are showering during peak hour, where actual electricity tariffs have gone through the roof. This is our actual replacement. This was our hot water system. All these big spikes here are the hot water system turning on at night. And not just once, it did one around about midnight, and then it does it again at about 6 o'clock in the morning when the water cools down. You can't quite read this, but at the day that I actually took this snapshot, it was using 16 kilowatt hours per day, or per night I should say. That is actually more than the rest of our entire house. And we couldn't even see it until we got solar to tell us this. The next day, we got our solar heat pump installed. These graphs are not the same scale, unfortunately, but this is the heat pump. It's about 1 kilowatt. Over here, this is 5 kilowatts, 4.8 to be exact. And this is basically the long term. There we go. Once you're inside your solar, even the worst production, this is 4 kilowatts. We have an 8 kilowatt panels and 6 kilowatt inverter, and that's what it looks like on a bad winter day. And the heat pump still sort of sits inside your production. So how do they work? It's basically an air conditioner. It squeezes the gas up here, which releases all the heat. It pumps it back out over here, expands the gas, all the heat rushes back into it, and then it basically goes through again. And it just keeps doing that over and over again. Normal air conditioners work much the same way, and obviously reverse, whichever you need. Okay, difference between models. So, like everything, you can buy something that is cheap. In fact, there are many advertised at $33 for a heat pump, hot water system, and I would outright say it's worth exactly what you pay for it. And it's probably guaranteed to last the shipping process and not much longer. And then, of course, you've got the mid-range and premiums. So the premium ones are the most environmentally friendly. In fact, I'll score highest across the board. They'll be the quickest recovery time, the highest efficiency, the most environmentally friendly, the best tanks. They'll last the longest. They will have the lowest operating temperatures, but they won't affect us here. But if it snows a lot, the premium one will be working well. The premium ones don't tend to include a backup electric element because they're so efficient they don't need it. General construction quality obviously is much better with the more expensive one. The lowest noise. So if you're running it during the day, that's probably not going to bother you. If you're running it at night on off-peak, that's going to become interesting when you've got an air conditioner running outside your window. The other thing is warranties. Premium ones have really good ones. Cheap ones, they will walk away from it as much as they can, and you'll have to basically fight them with the Department of Fair Trading to try and get them to come and fix it or replace it. In terms of different ranges, you get the low ends. You find these are typically at the bottom. They usually use refrigerant gases, which are an environmental nightmare. Their efficiency is not particularly good. They have a heavy reliance on the standard electric element backup. So if the temperature goes too low or the water level gets too cold, they will basically engage the electric element, and your heat pump basically stands idle while it heats up in the least efficient way possible. Mid-range, pretty good, much better efficiency, much more environmentally friendly. Generally, the warranties are also terrible, and they are indistinguishable in price from the good ones. Big one you find here is they tend to not provide labour to replace parts if it breaks down, or even to diagnose it. At the high end, you've got the reclams, the Sandons, the Thermans, and the X-splits. Okay, so this happens anytime you touch a hot water system. So there's often common complaints. Some plumbers don't understand what's gone wrong, and often they'll blame the heat pump. The backup elements, can hide failures of your heat pumps. So if you've got one which does have a backup element, it should be in eco mode. So that way it actually disables the backup element completely. So you are notified when your hot water goes cold that something's wrong, rather than just incurring a huge electricity bill. Okay, all new hot water systems, heat pump, gas, no matter what, has to comply with the current standards. So they will fit a tempering valve. So the heat pump itself will actually keep the water at 60 degrees inside the tank. It's only allowed to release 50 degrees. So it will actually mix it with cold water. Okay, pressure reducing valves, this is a big one. Most heat pumps are fitted with a pressure reduction valve. Now, if the actual installer doesn't go and put a pressure reduction valve on your mains, you will find that your hot water system, it has restricted flow while your cold water does not. And of course that means that you don't get a lot of good pressure from your hot water system. Small scale technology certificates. So every heat pump that you buy will get STCs. It works out somewhere between $1,000 and $1,300. So factor that in. If your installer does not tell you that, they're basically pocketing it. Obviously, if you're getting a cheap one, it looks good because it's only $33, but they are getting, $1,200, $1,300 for your heat pump. When you're reading comparisons on heat pumps, they will tell you a thing called a coefficient of performance. It is not standardized, and some of the worst heat pumps will test them under very, very favorable conditions, as in the temperature on a 45-degree day and the water is already warm. And they will tell you that they get really good performance. So the government actually called them up on this, and to get the STCs, they will actually come back and test them under standard conditions, and the amount of STCs that each heat pump gets is a very good indicator of the real performance in the real world. I'll pass you across to Jay.
Hi everyone, my name's Jay. I'm from one of the co-founders of Sunny Shire, and we helped about 400 homes in the Sutherland Shire go through the process of getting solar about 3 or 4 years ago, with Bundeena being one of the biggest supporters. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about solar today. Some big picture sort of reasons. Obviously, to reduce carbon emissions, it's something you can do, action you can take yourself, to save money, and I'll talk a bit about that. More energy independence and self-sufficiency, which is hard to put a dollar figure on, but it does feel good. And when you put all the pieces into place and you start electrifying different parts of your house, solar just gets better and better. So, for a couple of years I worked for a company which did quite sophisticated modelling of solar bill savings for customers as part of a quote. And I saw thousands of these quotes be generated, and we generated them based on the household's actual energy consumption, like a record. And so they're quite accurate, if you want to use that word, predicted savings. And what we found is, and I've seen in other places, is that most homes would expect to save about $800 to $1,200 per year by installing solar. That's what we call an interquartile, which means that 25% of homes would be less than 800 and 25% would be more than 1,200. So 50% of homes sit somewhere in that range. That changes all the time. It's very closely tied to tariffs, and tariffs change a lot, as we're all aware. They just went through the roof. And they're likely to stay fairly high for the foreseeable future. High tariffs are good for solar. One of the great things about solar is that it's a hedge against electricity prices, because when you install solar, as the price of electricity prices go up, the payback on your solar improves. But if your electricity prices fall, the value of your solar decreases, but your electricity bills are lower anyway. So you're sort of protected. It smooths it out. Solar, when you install solar, it reduces your bills in two ways. One way is that any solar that you produce that you don't use in your house gets sent to the grid. The meter measures that energy going to the grid, and you get a credit for that on your bill. And the other way that it reduces your bill is that when you do use your own solar, you're not importing from the grid, so you're importing less. And interestingly, the breakdown, this varies a lot by household, but usually the feed-in credits are about 1/3 of the value, and the avoided grid imports are about 2/3. Some houses it will be flipped. Some people install huge systems, export most of the solar, they choose a plan that has a really high feed-in tariff, and they might be getting 2/3 to 3/4 of their value from the feed-in tariff. And a lot of people get quite hung up on the feed-in tariff and make sure they choose a plan that has a really high feed-in tariff, but for most homes, it's actually not the major contributor. Especially if you've got appliances and things in your house that let you use your energy in the day, and you can shift your consumption to the day. Adding a battery might save you another around $200 to $400 per year. You won't see that figure anywhere, but that is a realistic figure. And the battery would probably cost more than the solar. So you can see that solar is pretty much a no-brainer. Solar is effectively free in the long term. Obviously, you need to be able to fund the upfront installation, but if you're able to do that, then after 6 years, you'll be break even for most homes, and from then on, it's just benefit, just savings.
We were about the 4 years.
Sorry?
We were about 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
And we bought the premium system and we got very bad shape.
Yeah. So, some homes can get payback in 3 years on installing solar. Some, it could be 8 years. But the average is probably around 4-ish, so 4 or 5. So I thought I'd talk a bit about our experience. Just a very ordinary 1970 home in Karela. We installed 6.6 kilowatts of solar, which is, by today's standards, probably the smallest that you would install. Most homes these days are installing about 8 or 9. We installed a heat pump, that's it on the right. That's a standard heat pump, so one of the premium ones that Daniel mentioned. We installed an efficient Dakin, sort of bottom of the range aircon, which we primarily use for heating. And we bought an electric car. We've had a couple of electric cars. So I'm a massive energy nerd, and I have a spreadsheet which has got all of our energy consumption broken down since we installed solar. And this is a plot of the actual savings. And the way I calculated this was based on the real data which you get if you install consumption monitoring with your solar. So anyone who's contemplating solar, I would highly recommend that you choose consumption monitoring. Make sure you ask the installer. And yeah, so the savings for us is it's about $1,100 per year since we installed it. And you can see it going up and down. That is a reflection of tariffs. The next bar is going to be a lot bigger because the savings will be bigger again. Bit of material here. This is trying to show the breakdown of the value as to whether it's from the grid, from the feed-in, or whether it's from self-consumption. And on this first graph, this is dollars savings per year. It's the same as the previous graph. The red is our feed-in value, and the blue is our self-consumption value. And you can see that over time we've gotten better at self-consumption. Feed-in tariffs have fallen, and our amount we export has fallen, so the red has become a lot smaller. This is the same graph, but it's energy instead of money. So you can see our solar generation is about 6,000 kilowatt hours per year, and we used about a third of it in the first year, and now we're using over half of it. I can explain that. So we had solar installed about 5 years ago, then we installed a battery just under a year ago. And we did that eyes wide open, knowing that we weren't going to save money by doing that. But we believe that they are helpful in the transition to a highly renewable level grid. And this shows our grid imports per month for about a year and a half. That's when we installed the battery, November. Those imports, I actually could have avoided them if I'd tried harder. So since we installed that battery in November, we went for 4 months where we didn't need the grid at all. We could have not imported any energy from the grid, and we sent a bit out. And that's a pretty cool feeling. And that includes running our car. So with a 6.6 kilowatt system, we powered our entire house and our transport from our own energy from our roof. This is a big picture slide. So you might hear that there's already too much solar, and in the middle of the day the grid can't handle the solar, and there's no point installing solar because there's already too much of it. And that's not true. This is New South Wales, and this is 3 days worth of grid level energy generation, and the different colours are where the energy came from. Black is, as you might guess, coal. Blue is hydro, green is wind, and the 2 yellows are rooftop solar and solar farms, so commercial solar. And so the height of the graph is the energy consumption of New South Wales. And this thing, that red line is the middle of the day, and this was just a few days ago. And we're achieving, in New South Wales in the middle of the day, we are 70% renewable in the middle of the day. And I mean, that's outstanding compared to 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It was, maybe 10%, 5%. So So now we're at 70. In the middle of the night, we're at about 10% or 5% renewable. So you can see why there's interest in batteries, because we know how to make all this yellow stuff. We just need to get that yellow stuff overnight. But one of the points I'm trying to make is that there's still 30% coal in the middle of the day. So when you install solar, you're still displacing some of this coal. So there is still room to go. And the other thing is that is the best, that's the highest level of renewables in the day that we'll see all year. In winter, it will be much lower, like sometimes you might see 40% renewables or something. So that's kind of as bad as it gets from an overload of solar point of view. And then who's doing home batteries?
Thank you. That was really good. I'm the non-spreadsheet girl, so that's the spreadsheet guys. So I'm really bad at spreadsheets, but I'm going to now fill in and talk about home batteries because we couldn't get a speaker to talk about home batteries. And I thank Ken Hathcote for all his prep work because I'm just plagiarising his fact sheet. So what's a home battery? Well, we've just heard about that. That's what it looks like. I do own a home battery, and why did I get it? Because I'm at work all day. I have solar panels and I wanted to run on solar at night time. So that was my reason, the top one. And also in Bundeena we've had a fair few blackouts, and I really like that my fridge doesn't defrost and all my food doesn't go off in a blackout and my lights stay on, so I like that too. I also do like factoring in, I know you shouldn't about feed-in tariffs, but I actually like that because, you know, it's nice to get a feed-in tariff, so that's good. And I'm going to talk to you about these words, VPP and CVPP shortly. That's a virtual power plant and a community virtual power plant that connects to the batteries. And also, it's about your EV, that your EV can basically be a battery for your house in the future with bi-directional charging, which hasn't arrived yet. So, now there's this thing called the duck curve, which I'm trying to show. What do I press to show it? This probably. Yeah. So this is called the duck curve. That's the 12 o'clock. This is my solar rooftop. And like you get these lovely apps with your installation of your rooftop, and you can see your home, battery, solar, grid. And I just wanted to show you how much was going into the grid on the right-hand side once my battery sucked up itself to go to 100%. So, and then the blue is my energy consumption. This is at my work. We've got an 8.2 system. So then I thought I'll show you my Tesla Powerwall number 2. You can see it's loaded itself up. It waited all day. From 6 o'clock it slowly powers everything. So there it's charged. So these apps are really good to show you what's going on. And on Friday, Tesla released the Powerwall 3, which can now power your home better, not just 5 kilowatt, but more, which means you can actually power your whole house now instead of just your fridge and your kitchen. So there's a big development that's literally just happened on Friday. So why would you want to get a battery? Well, I think that if you've got solar panels and you want to use the sun, which is free, it doesn't cost you anything to get energy from the sun, you can then also use clean green energy. So I think that's a good motivator. This independence from the grid. I think the one person, Doug, that has gone off the grid in Bundeena, thank you for being our guinea pig on that. Basically what happens is the energy companies charge you $1 a day to be connected to the grid. It's called the supply charge. And even when you've got solar and you're not using anything, you still got to pay that $30 a month, and it's really annoying. So Doug said, see you later guys, because he's got a battery, he's got rooftop, and you've managed with, you know, maybe a parka on in winter, but to get through the night, which is fantastic. So how good is that? I think applause for Doug. for going off the grid. I think these connection supply charges are really something we've got to watch, because that's where they also get you. That is, like, obviously, if you're paying different tariffs, at night time is the greatest tariff. To have a battery, you don't have to pay the high electricity prices. So you save money, basically. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of what I do at work. There's some energy providers that let you pay wholesale energy prices, which I really love, because the price gets set every half an hour. And you get a little app, and I'll show it to you in a minute, where you set the price. If it gets to 75 cents, that's when I want to empty my battery and feed in. And that way, like, you can make a lot of money. It sometimes gets to $12 feed-in tariff when it's a hot day or whatever. So I think for some of us that might be the way of the future, where it feels like a share market, you know, where we decide when to sell and when to buy. So basically now I've got to cover this VPP thing, which I said, what's a VPP? A VPP is a virtual power plant. So it then becomes that every battery at every house gets connected. So I signed up because I didn't have the money to buy a battery with AGL, and they gave me a battery at 0% interest over 5 years. I thought, that's good, because I'll have that. And then I just had to pay this flat fee of $195 a month. I said, good, then I know my energy bill will be $50 a week. But I was getting feed-in tariffs of $125 a month, so actually it worked out well. But I wouldn't go with AGL now, because they charge you all these fees. And we have got, with our solar bulb buy, probably lined up a really good deal on that. Also, interest-free loan for solar rooftop and solar batteries. So, coming back to the VPP, so it's like, it'll be Tesla, it'll be AGL, and they run this virtual power plant with your battery. And they then reserve the right, some 5 times a year, some 10 times a year, to call on your battery and empty it out and put it in the grid. So I think this is the way of the future, where we're going to have these VPPs. However, there's also CVPPs, which are your community virtual power plants. And that's something really interesting, I think, for Bundeena, where overseas, via an app on your phone, I can say, I want to sell electricity now to my neighbor, and the community sell to each other without making a profit, as a non-profit. But for that, we have to become like an energy provider. But it's big stuff, but it's really interesting stuff, especially with our high rate of solar rooftop in Bundeena. So, with your battery, you need what's called a battery management system. And you need to, like, it's basically an app on your phone. And I'm with Amber, which is this wholesale trading energy provider, where every half hour the price gets revised. And I just wanted to show you, this is just for last week. On average, I was getting a feed-in tariff of 31 cents. So this is how much my battery was saving me per week, 35 or 23, and then my earnings. So like, with this Amber app, I'm literally trading and making more money. So I'm not sure what the payback would be for a battery, which generally is about 10 years, if you use it more, to make money. Now, you probably know me as the lady trying to get a community battery for Bundeena, and then COVID happened. To have a community battery, we have this thing where we do have to become, like when I was looking into it, an energy provider, because people will have to hire storage in the community battery to store their electricity, so to speak. And KPMG did a modeling, and they were looking at charging people $1.50 to $2 to use space in that battery. So now we're also then having to pay a $1 supply charge. Who wants to pay $2.50? You know, like the costs are going to add up. So I think there are now lots of community batteries coming up, and we'd like to apply for one, but the grant applications for community batteries make me have a nervous breakdown, really. They're so hard. Our committee hasn't felt up to it yet, but I think we really want to. So what we have done though is talk to the big energy consumers in Bundeena, like the 2 clubs, who have heaps of solar, but they need the electricity at night when they're open. And they've said they're very keen. We've got the space for community batteries, so I think we will keep trying. So are the batteries worth it? Well, basically payback, I think conservatively it's 10 years, while your solar rooftop is 3 to 7 years. Now this is the exciting thing. The EVs outside have like 5 home batteries on the bottom of them, in their floor. And in South Australia already you can do what's called bi-directional charging. So that then your car becomes your home battery. So if you happen to be home during the day with your car in the driveway, you could put all your solar into your car, and then at night time, the car powers your house. I think that's the way of the future. So the letters you got to watch out for is vehicle to home, V2H, but you can also trade energy with your car and go vehicle to grid, where if the grid feed-in tariff is $12, you would just, you know, here you go, 30% of my charge. So I think that is really interesting. And I think, I mean, I don't know if we're talking about payback on EVs, but I think that might increase the payback for EVs. So pros and cons, I've talked about them. We're running a bit behind time. So I'm just going to hand over now to the electric vehicle talk.
So, why would you get an EV? The big one for me is that we have to decarbonise transport, and passenger cars and small transport is a massive part of that, the biggest single part. So that's why we got an EV for the first time 5 years ago. But they come actually with a lot of advantages. And to be honest, if petrol cars and electric cars produce the same amount of emissions, I would still buy an electric car. So what's it like to own one? They're 2 of the ones that we've owned. An old Nissan Leaf on the top, Hyundai Ioniq, one of the, it's like 5-year-old one on the bottom, and a Tesla Model 3, which is outside. We sold those 2, we just have the Tesla now. To drive, they're much more enjoyable and pleasant to drive and own. You'll know if you've driven one, you'll straight away understand what I'm talking about. Much smoother to drive, acceleration is very strong, you don't lose many traffic light derbies, even in that white one. And the regen braking is nice when you get used to it. Most people really like it, come to like it, which is when you take your foot off the accelerator, the car slows down more strongly, and it's doing that by capturing the energy and putting it back into the battery. Hybrid cars do it too, but like a Prius, but the EVs do it a bit more strongly. Way quieter, which is very nice for both inside the car and outside the car. You know, when I get up early and I leave the garage, it doesn't make hardly any noise, doesn't put any fumes into the garage. There's no oil or oil drips, or they just, and so much simpler, mechanically much simpler machines. So what's it like to charge? So if you're talking about your local driving, which is how you use the car most of the time around town, there's basically 2 ways you can charge them at home. One is from a power point, a normal power point, and the other way is that you install a dedicated charger device, which is like a box on the wall which has a dedicated circuit. And the reason you do that is because they charge faster. So assuming sort of regular usage of a car of about 250 k's a week, from charging from a regular power point you need about 25 hours of charging per week. So you probably need to plug it in every second day, charge it overnight, that sort of thing. If you have one of the wall box chargers, which charge about 3 times faster, that becomes about 7 hours of charging per week. So you might just plug it in once or twice. Yeah, so you might, if you have solar, you might end up charging a bit more than that. You might plug in more often because you'll plug it in the day whenever you have the opportunity to. And you might slow the power down to try and match your solar. But if you don't do that, if you don't have solar, you're just plugging it in and charging it as fast as you can. That's about what you can expect. So even from a normal power point, it's still more convenient than a petrol station. I haven't gone to a petrol station for 5 years. And the car is already parked in the garage for all these hours. So I don't need to go out of my way to fuel it. So someone said, how long does it take to charge your electric car? And the answer is about 7 seconds, because that's about how long it takes to plug it in, as opposed to 15 minutes going to the servo. Long distance trips are different. So on a long distance trip, typically what happens is that you will drive for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then you'll stop and charge for about 20 minutes. Is probably the best way to think about it. It can depend on the speed of the charger, how fast your vehicle charges. Some of the vehicles charge very quickly, some of them are a bit slower. The range of an electric car drops a bit on the highway because they're so efficient in every other way. They're very sensitive to the air resistance and therefore the speed. So like my car has a range of about 400 k's around town and about 300, 350 at high speed. So long distance driving, a little bit more planning is required because you need to think about where the chargers are. One of the main things you find is that you care a lot about what are the facilities near the charger, because what you do is you synchronise your sort of rest stops with where the chargers are. Is there a toilet? Is there a cafe? Are the pies any good at Exeter? That sort of thing. And these days there's more and more high-speed chargers popping up. Between here and Canberra, when we first bought an EV, there were 0 high-speed chargers. There's now about 40. And there's choices. You can go to Pheasant's Nest, Gundagai, or Gundagai's on the way. Anyway, so just a week ago, I did a trip in an EV. At the top, that's Jonathan Prendergast, who's doing the hot water heat pump thing in October. It was his car that we went in. And this was how the trip went. So it was 550 Ks. We started from Sutherland with not a full battery, but half full or something like that. Went to the airport to pick someone up, then went to Pheasant's Nest. Then we charged for 15 minutes. That's the chargers at Pheasant's Nest. They're quite new. Got solar canopies, which is quite nice. Then we did a long trip, so we ended up charging there for about 15 minutes. Long trip, 300 Ks to Gundagai. Pulled into Gundagai with 2% left in the battery. But, we've had Teslas for a while, we know what they can and can't do, so we weren't worried. But that was actually because the car was really full and we got hit with a storm that wasn't expected. And when you have rain and it's cold, the range drops a bit. So the car was predicting that we'd get there with like 12%, and it ended up being 2%. But we knew what was happening. It was all right. And there were charges in between that could have stopped that if we were going to run out. So there was never any
Teslas, they have a bit of extra range below 0.
That's right, yeah. They don't stop when they get to 0. Yeah. So then we charged for 30 minutes, so that was nearly a full charge at Gundagai. So that's something to eat. And then, Narrandera, easily sort of used half the battery. So you can see we did that trip. It wouldn't be much slower than you would do it in a petrol car. Usually what happens is, so we often go to Canberra and we stop at Goulburn and charge, plug in at the visitors centre, and then we go and have a coffee or a sandwich or something, and I'll get a notification on my app halfway through my coffee saying the car is ready and we can go, and we're not ready to go. Yeah. So running costs. So the graph on the left is for city driving, the graph on the right is for highway driving, long distance trips. So on the left is the one that is most to be driving. Petrol these days will cost you about $20 per 100 Ks around town. If you have an EV and you charge it from home, depends on when you charge it and what your rates are, but these are the 3 sort of options. So that's if you just pay flat rate, 33 cents, which is pretty high now. Off-peak, 20 cents, solar about 5 cents is the effective cost of charging from solar, because you're foregoing your feed-in tariff. So even the most expensive home electricity is nearly a quarter the cost of petrol. So, petrol cars probably spending these days $2,000, $2.5 grand, $3,000 per year on petrol. EV will be $500, maybe $400. If you have solar, $150. per year. And this is if you don't have any charge, you can't charge it at home, and you choose to go and pay full price for a fast charger, like there's one at Tarrant Point now, still half the price of petrol. On the highway it's a little bit different because petrol cars become more efficient and electric cars become less efficient, and the price you pay for electricity at those high-speed chargers like at Pheasant's Nest is small, about 63 cents. The EV is still cheaper, but just not by such a big margin. And next presenter.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, so these are the big ones inside your house. So I'll also show you a couple of pictures about EVs as well. Okay, so let's why we change to electric again. Okay, so first off the bat, this is what your home consumption looks like as a breakdown. The big one is heating and cooling. It equates to about 40%, a bit less than half. Your hot water, which I discussed earlier, a bit over 1/5 of your consumption. So these are the two things you probably need to concentrate on the most to reduce your energy consumption inside your house. I'll also be covering cooking as well, which is a little bit less. I'd be surprised if anyone's still using white oil and candles in their house. We've done all with LEDs, and we were using about 14 kilowatt hours per day. Then we got our EV, and it almost doubled. So one thing Jay didn't mention is that EVs are 80% efficient. From the power point to the drivetrain, your petrol car is about 30% efficient. So all the rest gets turned into heat and dumped into the atmosphere, along with all the pollution that goes with it. But just be aware that our solar system, we were about 60% self-powered from our solar system at this point, and then we got the EV, and that went down to about 50% with a lot of effort to get the solar power into the EV. Okay, so cooking, lesser of the two, but why would you want to change to induction cooking? A few things: safety. There's no heater. It is literally a magnet underneath the glass. It doesn't generate heat. All the heat is generated in your pot or on your fry pan, and nothing is going up the sides. There's no water vapor. There's no fumes. There's no huge requirement for ventilation. So you're not losing in winter, you're not getting all your nice warm air that's been heated up and it's being blown out the back outside. Speed. Induction is a lot quicker. Because it is efficient, it's working straight on a pan and going straight into your food. There's none of this waiting around for the elements to get hot. If you've got electric, the heat will transfer into your pot. In terms of gas, it's going straight up the sides of your pot most of the time, and it's, the fun part is like you're burning the sides. Energy efficiency, that's what is discussed. Cleaning. Induction is one big nice flat glass plate. It's very easy to clean. And then the next one is control. So induction, because it is so efficient, it can get a lot hotter. Your pan can get hot very quick, but it also scales down very low, and it is absolutely instantaneous. And you can repeat it. So with the gas, you're always trying to get it perfect, and it's never going to be the same twice. Whereas the induction, you can set it to 10% and it stays there, and you know you're getting 10%. Okay, just versus gas. We discussed this earlier. Improved air quality. So you're not getting the fumes from your gas if you go with induction. There's no moisture, there's no particulates, and you don't need to vent it out. Humidity. So gas will have what causes moisture inside your house. Burning any fossil fuel inside your house will end up with water or moisture being distributed throughout your house unless you vent it. And that of course ends up in mold and mildew. So if you're opening your windows, or opening curtains in the morning and finding you've got condensation on your windows, that's most likely because you've got fossil fuels burning inside your house. Boiling water comparison, induction versus gas. Almost half of the time to boil a pot of water on induction versus a gas pot. And this takes your boiling eggs from 20 minutes down to 12 minutes. Put it into context. So how does it work? Pretty simple. Electric magnet, power flows through it. It runs a bit of high technology circuitry to get the right frequency, and it only works with iron-based fry pans. So the heat literally starts at the base of your pan. Nothing goes up the side, nothing goes into the glass. The heat is here, where you want it. Okay, some caveats. Induction cooktops only work with ferrous pans. So basically, if your magnet doesn't stick to the bottom of your pan is no longer going to work. You'll need to upgrade your pans. Good thing they're not that expensive. Induction coil size. This is a big one. So a big complaint is often that induction doesn't work for large pans. It does. The cheaper that your induction set is, the more likely it's going to have a very small coil. The problem with that, of course, is if you have a huge fry pan, only the center is going to get hot and not the whole pan. At the cheaper end, when you set the settings down low, down to 10s, 20s, 30%, they have a tendency to turn the coil on and off rather than to scale the power. So that'll happen at the cheap end of the market. The more expensive ones, your mid-range and more expensive, will be a lot more consistent. Some of them create noise. Now, this is not actually the induction cooktop. This is actually a problem with your pots and pans. As cheaper ones will actually start to click, and you'll hear click, 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 and humming and buzzing coming from your pans. Okay, next one. In your existing house, if you have electric already, you can get induction cooktops that are rated for very high power. So typical hot plates are usually set to a 20 amp circuit. You can get most induction cooktops will be rated for a 20 amp, but you can get 5 burners, 6 burners, and you get combined units where you can turn the whole hot plate into one big cooktop for a very large pot or pan. They will have higher requirements, and you may need to replace the sub-circuit and the cabling. Okay, last one is going to be sensitive electronics. If you have a pacemaker, induction cooktops are often not recommended because it is literally a magnetic field, and the closer you get, the more likely you are going to trigger arrhythmia. The big one, we have a beautiful copper set which cost us an absolute fortune many years ago, and they do not work on our induction. So they've been sitting in the back of our cupboard for the last 5 years, waiting for a revival of better technology that will work with them. It's probably hopeful, but so just be aware that if you do go induction, you may need to replace your pots and pans. Okay, home heating. This is the big one. Remember, this equated to about 40% of the energy consumption in your house. Fluid gas heaters and wood burners are about 80% efficient. Most of this goes outside, but the big one is your chimney actually leaks heat even when your burner's not on. So all that big steel column, if you've got an open fireplace, God help you, sorry, air is leaking as well. So you're more likely to need to use it. Unflued gas heaters, about 75% efficient. But the problem is you have to have the ventilation. If you don't have ventilation, you're going to smoke your house out, and that's where all those wonderful things that we started off with at the first presentation come into play. All those wonderful gases which have health issues. The big one is, of course, unflued gas heaters. All the moisture comes into your house. It's no longer being vented outside, and that's where you start having mold issues, and there's health issues that occur from mould as well, not directly from the gas. Open fireplaces, they're fun, we all love them, but they're 15% efficient. Literally 1/5, 1/6 of any other of the wood burners or gas heaters. Your chimney leaks heat all the time. And this is a big one. This one is not on the New South Wales government website, but it's going to be 15 times more fumes and particulate matter versus a closed wood burner. So we should be keeping this for fun, not for your primary method of heating your house. So why would you install a heat pump? Big ones are convenience. Boop, boop, that's on. Wonderful. Improved air quality, so if you've got asthma, any respiratory issues or allergies, that immediately eliminates most of those. Please do clean your filters once a year. That's a common complaint. Efficiency drops and you get a bit of a smell if you don't clean them. Humidity control, mold and mildew, once again causes respiratory issues, and the fun one is mites. Big one. Thank you, Jay. So with your air conditioner, it can run from your PV solar. So your home heating or home cooling in summer can be effectively cheap or actually very free. If you're actually using if you're setting timers for your air conditioning. Efficiency typically is 350 to 500%. You'll have to look very hard to find something which is 350%. That's about 20 years ago. Most of them are 500, some of them are higher these days. Okay, cost. This is a good one. Air conditioners, if you run it from a grid, are about half the cost of gas heating. Gas prices are still going up. I don't know if everyone's been following them, but I think it was about 400% over the last 3 years for gas, whereas electricity's gone up about 80%. Environmentally friendly, so there's no pumping particulates, gases into the environment or into your house. Anyway, so heat pumps, already said it, you can run it free or cheap. It'll suck the heat in and it'll dump it out into the ambient air outside. They only circulate the air that's inside the house. So you're not getting fresh air with a reverse cycle air conditioner. There are ventilation systems, heat recovery ventilation systems. They're usually very expensive. We usually reserve those for areas which are quite cold, like Melbourne or in the mountains. Overall efficiency is typically 400, 500% for a reverse cycle air conditioner. Pretty good. Electricity prices are actually decreasing. So Jay mentioned that they're increasing and we're not really sure. Last year we had problems with gas with Ukraine and Russia, so the demand on gas went through the roof. The prices of gas also went through the roof worldwide, and the cost of generating electricity from gas absolutely soared, and our prices in Australia, at least the eastern side of Australia, also went through the roof. The problem is that was all at the back end, the wholesale market. The retail side, they work by hedging. They basically estimate the price, and then those prices flow through 1 year later. So we are actually this year at a retail end paying the prices from last year. This year the prices have dropped again. So next year they will actually, hopefully, if you've got a very good retailer, get a price reduction on your electricity. Now this is from 2021, before all the crazy prices. This is a cost comparison of heating your house in Sydney down here. You can see that actually heating your house with electricity, on particularly a reverse cycle air conditioner, is half of using gas heating for your house. Now, I did a bit of research. These are 2021 figures. 2023 now, gas has gone up 300% in 2 years. So your prices of heating your house with gas are now 3 times that, and electricity is only 65% increased. So just in terms of that, that's almost 5 times the price to heat your house with gas than what it is to use a reverse cycle air conditioner. I think that's the last one. I think we're going to have some questions. Hopefully we have some questions. Everyone's been paying attention.